Level 1. Ruined tycoon. You're 48. You built the biggest freight company in Chicago, and your name is on 900 trucks. This morning, your CFO showed the board 11 invoices you never signed, under a signature that looks exactly like yours. By tonight, you're sleeping outside. Not a figure of speech, as it only took 6 hours. Badge dead at 9:40, cards frozen by 10, phone off at noon. Then your house on Astor Street gone past 2. Marcus, who ran your money for 9 years, comes down to the sidewalk to watch, folds a 20 the long way, and tucks it in your pocket like a tip, in front of 6 people who used to answer your emails. Let's see how long a genius survives without money. The 20's gone by 3. $4 to charge your phone, $3 for a sandwich, and the change for a CTA bus in the wrong direction. By dark, you're on a bench on Halsted, and a kid with a crowbar offers you half an Italian beef to keep watch while he cracks a vending machine. You say no. He laughs. Then starve. Then a man sits down next to you. He doesn't look at your face. He looks at your wrist. Level 2. Street survivor. The bed lottery line starts forming at 3:15. The man from the bench told you 4, so you show up at 4 like a man with an appointment, and you're 42nd in a line that holds 31. You sleep outside. Again, here's the part nobody explains, and it's the whole thing. The bed line forms at 3:15. The day labor corner on Cermak fills at 5:30, and if you're not on it by 5, you don't get picked. That's not 2 problems. It's 1. Every day you choose between sleeping and earning, and whichever you pick, you pay for it 18 hours later. You used to run a logistics company. There's a whiteboard 9 blocks from here with the word optimize on it in your own handwriting. The memo Marcus read you Marcus, who ran your money for 9 years, named 11 freight carriers you supposedly signed into the system yourself. You signed nothing. Doesn't matter, a man on a sidewalk doesn't get to file a rebuttal. One of the 11 sounded like a ski resort, Ridgeline. You'll forget it for 3 years. Then your feet start. 11 days in the same dress socks and your left heel opens like a split seam. You go to the day center and they give you a parka. They have parkas by the pallet stacked to the ceiling because everybody donates a coat. Nobody donates socks. Socks are what people wear out and throw away. So the one thing every man in this room needs is the one thing that never arrives. You stand there doing inventory math in a warehouse of free coats. $9. 6 pairs of Hanes Crew. Best return on capital you'll ever achieve. The man who took the watch off your wrist that first night finds you counting. He'd looked at it a long time before he said anything. Then he named the price. Half a MC double. He'd throw in the coat. You didn't haggle. Then he walked you off the bench to the viaduct on Halsted where he sleeps, and you spent your first night out in a suit with a working man's month in it, under a coat you'd just bought with a watch, shoes on, because he told you to. Rennie. That's the thing he tells people later that he found you counting. He walks you through it like a shift lead showing a new high of the floor. Copper at Delgado's on Kedzie, $2.60 a pound, and they'll shave you on the scale if you don't watch the needle. Cans. Cardboard, flattened, Tuesdays only. The church calendar Tuesday hot meal at St. Basil's, Thursday bag lunch, Sunday's the good one. And underneath it, the currency that never shows up in the numbers. Who owes who? So you buy a Mead notebook for 60 cents and do the one thing you've ever actually been good at. Names down the left. What's owed across? Inside a week, you've settled 2 arguments that would otherwise have gone to a bottle, and men come over to ask what it says about them. Rennie reads it upside down and gives you your name. Ledger. You won't use the other one for 3 years. Then you look at the can route. Everybody works the park at noon. 40 men walking the same 6 blocks in a line behind each other, fighting over the same 4 bins. 90 minutes for $4. So you go at 2 in the morning to the bar strip on Division when the barbacks drag the recycling out to the curb and there's nobody there at all. $11. One night. Triple. You're so pleased with yourself you nearly say your last name out loud. Then you sleep. And while you sleep, somebody takes your bag, notebook, socks, your intake paperwork. That's the second rule, and it costs you 6 weeks. Anything you can't carry, you don't own. The first rule is that you cannot stay awake forever. So you rebuild the route from memory outside the day center, drawing it in the dirt with a stick, because paper gets taken and your head doesn't. A man in a clean jacket watches you do the entire thing. You can hold all that in your head? $40, he says. 11 blocks. Don't open the bag. Level 3. Courier. You are 11 blocks into a walk with a taped grocery bag under your arm, and the entire job, the whole skill, The reason you get paid is that you don't look inside it. $40. Then a second run that week. Then 8 a week, then 11. And you never ask because the not asking is the product. Tovar, the clean jacket, isn't paying you to walk. Anybody can walk. Meanwhile, you're trying to get out. Here's how that goes. You need an ID to get a job. You need an address to get an ID. You need a job to get an address. The Harold Washington gives you 45 minutes on a public terminal. Hard stop. The form wants a previous address you're not allowed to claim, and a box for a phone number you don't have, and you sit there 3 Wednesdays running. A man who approved a $40 million cross-dock facility cannot obtain a piece of plastic with his face on it. And somewhere in the second year you start seeing it. At the scrap line behind Delgado's you recognize a guy from a handoff on Ashland. Then 2 more from a crew out of the underpass. Then you start counting because that's the disease, and the number keeps going up. Hundreds of men moving product across this city in broad daylight, on foot, past cameras, past cops, past everybody. Not one of them has ever been stopped. They're not invisible. They're underestimated. There's a difference, and the difference is worth money. Then a run goes bad. The address on Ogden is a dead door, and Tovar's rule is that a lost package is the courier's debt. And the debt does not care that you're 50 years old. You don't panic. You do the thing your brain does. The receiver had a standing pickup, which means a habit, which means a window. The front of the building is scaffolded, so the fire door is the working door now. You walk 2 doors down to a laundromat with a taped sign, and there's a man behind the counter who's been waiting 40 minutes and is very unhappy about it. Late, but delivered. Tovar pays you double and doesn't explain why. And for the first time in 2 years, a room gets quiet when you talk. 2 weeks later, you see your watch. Pawn shop on Milwaukee, second shelf, $400 on a tag tied to the band. You know the scratch on the clasp. You bought it the quarter the company first cleared a profit and wore it to the bank like a moron. You have $61. You stand there long enough that the owner comes out and tells you to move along. You move along. He's right. That same month, you read the press release. Corbin Freight names Marcus Vail permanent chief executive. One line buried at the bottom. The founder's whereabouts remain unknown. There's a photo. Taken in your office, at your window. He got a new chair. You log off with 11 minutes still on the clock because you can't look at it anymore. That Friday, Tovar hands you a phone. He's done watching you carry things. He wants you assigning the runs, and he'll cut you in on all 9 men instead of paying you for your own feet. You say yes before he finishes the sentence. Then you sit on the bench and do the arithmetic he has never done. Tovar pays 9 men $40 a run. Tovar bills somebody $80. And 9 men who show up sober every morning with no contract and no supervisor and nowhere else to be are worth more than that to somebody in this city. And nobody has ever bothered to find out how much. You do not sleep that night. It isn't the cold. Level 4. Community leader. You hold the job about 11 seconds before you break it. 9 men in a half circle behind the day center, first morning, and instead of handing out runs, you say the numbers out loud. What Tovar bills. What each man's route is worth. What you're keeping. Then you pay them the difference out of your own cut. Nobody says thank you. A guy named Prine looks at the money in his hand like it's a summons, because in 51 years no employer has told him a number in front of another human being, and he doesn't know what the trick is yet. That's the whole innovation. You said a number out loud, and now they show up 20 minutes early. All of them. Every morning in the dark, standing around a fence in the cold, and it takes you months to understand why, and when you do it takes something out of you. Being early is the only thing they still control. Every institution these men have dealt with has stood them up. The bedline, the clinic, the benefits office. So not one of them will be the one who's late. They'd rather freeze. You get there at 25 now. You never mention it. Somewhere in there, Deb at the day center window fixes your life in 9 minutes. You mention the ID loop the way you'd complain about weather, and she says use our address. We're a designated mailing address. Sit down. A form and a photocopy. You've been talking to that woman for over a year. You never asked her for anything, not once, because asking was the last thing you still owned, and you've been rationing it like the socks, the only thing out here that was free. You sign the name and your hand shakes so badly she has to look away. Then Kimball shows up. 19. 4 days out of a Corolla that got towed with everything inside it. Second night out here, somebody rolls him for his bag while he's asleep. And in the morning, he's on the curb not crying in the specific way that's worse than crying. You buy him a bag. Then you do the other thing. 2 men sleep. 1 man sits. Rotate at 3. And the man who sits gets $5 a night out of the pot because a favor runs out in a week and a job doesn't. 9 becomes 19 inside 2 months. Word gets around what you pay, and men walk over from other crews to stand at your fence. Nobody in your group loses a bag again. Not one, all winter. You've invented a security overhead line item out of nothing, with 19 guys and a spiral notebook, and it's the proudest you've been in your adult life, including the year you rang a bell at an exchange. Which is exactly when Tovar puts his hand on your shoulder. He's friendly about it. That's what you remember. He explains, warmly, the way you'd explain a policy that men who know what they're worth are no good to him. 2 nights later, Kimball comes back with his jaw wired shut. He can't eat solid food for 7 weeks. He's 19. You bought him a bag. That same month, a leasing company buys the building the day center rents. Rent goes up 40%. Deb says they've got a year, and the only person fighting it is the board chair Alma Guerrero, who used to sit on some freight company's board and got pushed off the same season the founder disappeared. You write the name in the back of the notebook, in the column you don't show anyone. The leasing company is a subsidiary. You already know whose. You don't touch Tovar. You don't go near him. You pull all 19 men off his runs on a Tuesday night. Every route, same hour. He misses 40 hours of deliveries in 3 days and loses the only client he has. You do not have to be strong. You have to be the schedule. Let me say one thing and then I will not bring it up again. A lot of you asked how I make this style of YouTube videos, so I gathered all my tactics for starting a channel like mine in this guide. If you want it, the link's below. Now let's get back to the video. Level 5. Network Boss. 3 men you've never met are standing in front of the day center at 6 in the morning asking you to schedule their crews, and you have to explain that you're not anybody's boss. You're the dispatcher. That's the one with the power. By the 3rd year, it runs off 14 prepaid phones in a mesh bag and a laminated map with grease pencil zones, and the notebook has 411 names in it. You know all of them. Tovar's own supplier replaces him inside a month. By winter, he's taking Tuesday shifts off your board like everybody else, and you give them to him and never say a word about the kid's jaw. That's the coldest thing you've ever done to a person. You do it again. Then you find the sentence that changes everything. A tower hires a facilities management firm. The facilities firm hires a janitorial contractor. The janitorial contractor hires whoever shows up with a name on a list. Nobody vets the 3rd layer. There's a lobby, and there's clean floors in the morning, and the space between is staffed by people the building has decided not to see. Your people are on the list. Your people are inside every building downtown, on the overnight, 6 nights a week, and you didn't break a single lock to do it. So you go legitimate where legitimate pays better. Event teardown, recycling contracts. Day labor bid as a unit instead of 40 men underselling each other on a corner. The ones who get housed disappear. They don't call. You see a guy across Cermak 8 months after he got a studio and he crosses the street and you take that personally for half a year. Then you understand it and you stop. It isn't shame. It's terror. You cannot look back at the water. You keep their names in the notebook anyway. In a column you don't show anyone. The tear down is what makes the city notice you. A promoter stiffs a 9-man crew on $2,200 for a 2-night breakdown because who's going to collect it? No contract, no lawyer. You don't threaten him and you don't sue him. You take his next 4 events off the board. Nobody in this city picks up when his number comes through because you are the phone. By the 3rd event, he's loading his own trussing at 2 in the morning. He pays cash on a Tuesday in an envelope and shakes your hand. You're in a heated room when it happens. Borrowed coat folding table, a bid for 11 buildings and it runs long, and it goes well, and you're being taken seriously for the first time since the sidewalk. They sweep the Halsted Viaduct at 5 that morning. Coldest night of the year. Front loader, city contractor, 40 minutes. Everything under there goes in the compactor. A man's coat, his blankets, the paper bag with his medication in it. Rennie gets pneumonia. He dies 11 days later at Strasger. You were in a meeting for that too. Nobody claims the body. He had nobody. That's not a sad detail, it's a legal problem. 10 days, then he goes into the ground with a number. So to bury your friend, you have to become a person again. You sign Daniel Corbin on a Cook County form in blue ink, first time you've written it in 3 years, and the clerk doesn't look up. She hands you a paper bag with his effects in it, a rosary, 40 cents, and a steel watch with a scratch clasp. At the memorial, 60 people. A shopping cart of carnations somebody lifted from a jewel a guy named Wells says he's been sleeping in the truck lot on Pershing all winter. Warm, dry, nobody bothers you. Because the trucks never move. Level 6. Mastermind. You put your hand on the hood of a tractor at noon on a Tuesday and it's cold. 41 of them behind a fence on Pershing. No yard office. No fuel island. No drivers. No scale. No wash bay. The chain on the gate has rusted into one piece, which takes years, and the weeds through the fifth axle are 18 inches high. The name on the doors is Ridgeline, the ski resort. One of 11 Marcus read off a memo on the morning they took your badge, and you said you'd never heard of it, and you were telling the truth. And it was the least useful true thing anyone has said in a conference room. Trucks that don't move don't run routes. Every load your company paid Ridgeline for was air. Invoices for freight that never existed. Paid out of a business you built, and the man who supposedly signed that carrier into the vendor system is you. Here's the part nobody else on this planet could have found. Biggest freight town in America, and no database of where its trucks sleep. But hundreds of men sleep in lots, and they know exactly which rigs run and which ones are furniture, because a warm engine block is worth walking 6 blocks for in February, and a dead one isn't worth crossing the street. You ask one question at the Tuesday meal. By Thursday, you have 9 more dead yards, 11 carriers on that memo, 9 lots with cold trucks and 1 address that's a nail salon. Ghost carriers. Found by ghosts. Now you do it properly. The checks have to go somewhere. Remit to addresses are mailbox stores, 3 of them, plus a suite number on Lawrence that's a mail drop with a plant in the lobby. You put a man on each, not watching, sitting, eating a sandwich, charging a phone, being furniture which your people do better than anyone alive. 9 days in, the Lawrence man gives you a name. Second Wednesday of the month, a contract driver called Emil picks up Ridgeline's mail and forwards it unopened to a box in another county. $200 a week, cash, and he has never once looked inside an envelope. You don't threaten Emil. You'd have to be a different man. You offer him $300 in a route that's real. And that's when you find the signature, 11 onboarding packets. 11 W-9s, 11 insurance certificates, 11 approval chains, and at the bottom of every one of them, your name in your own hand. Not 11 signatures. 1 signature. Scanned once. Dropped in 11 times, same tilt, same broken loop in the D where the pen skipped. You know which document it came from, because you only signed one thing that whole year with a fountain pen, in front of a photographer, for the annual report. A $50,000 donation check to the charity that runs the day center. The one that fed you. The one with the coats to the ceiling and no socks. The one with Deb behind the window. He built the fraud out of the only generous thing you ever did. He never even changed the pen. And it is worth nothing. You're a man with no address, no counsel, no standing, holding photographs of mailboxes and documents you have no right to have seen. Every road to a regulator runs through your own confession. The memo in that company's file says the fraud was yours and you cannot prove a negative from a bench. You need a person the system is required to listen to. You go back 3 pages in the notebook. Alma Guerrero, board chair, day center. Wrote it down 18 months ago and never used it. Former director, Corbin Freight. You have been eating soup 40 feet from the door back into your own life for a year and a half. Level 7. Corporate infiltrator. 60 seconds into the meeting, Alma Guerrero puts down the photographs of the mailboxes and asks the only question that matters. Can you get it without stealing it? She doesn't want mailboxes. She wants the vendor master, the original onboarding packets with the approval chain attached, who signed off after the signature that isn't yours. That lives on a server on 14 and in a records room behind a badge reader, and she says it like a thing out of reach of people like you. She's been out of that building 4 years. She doesn't know what it's made of now. You do. Your people clean it. You go in on the overnight crew of the janitorial contractor your own network staffs, wearing a badge with somebody else's name and a photograph nobody has compared to a face since it was printed. It gets checked once. At the turnstile. By a guard reading a paperback who scans it without looking up from the page. After that, for 6 hours, you are a man with a cart. Nobody in the history of this country has ever looked at a man with a cart. You could push it into a board meeting. You ride the service elevator up past your own name cut into the lobby granite. 11:40 at night, 14th floor, and there's still light at the far end. He comes around the corner with a coat over his arm and a phone in his hand, close enough that you could tell somebody what he smells like. And he steps around the cart the way you step around a wet floor sign. "'Excuse me." He doesn't look up. 3 years. 11 blocks. A man dead of pneumonia in a county bed. 411 people carrying his buildings on their backs 6 nights a week. And you're standing in arm's reach of him holding a mop handle, and he does not know he is in the room. You do not do anything. You hold the cart and let the elevator take him down, and that is the single hardest professional act of your life. Then the records room, and the packets aren't there. Pulled 6 weeks ago for retention review, which is a phrase that means a locked gray bin and a Thursday pickup. Then you stop thinking like a man who lost something and start thinking like a dispatcher. Destruction is a subcontract too. Third layer, same as the mops. The bins don't get shredded in the building, they get trucked out and destroyed on a schedule. And the vendor bills by weight, so between the dock and the shredder, nobody counts anything. The pickup is on a clipboard in the dock office. And you already know a man whose entire job is moving other people's paper without opening it. 19 bins. Thursday. A facility on Pershing, 400 yards from the dead truck lot where this whole thing started. 2 nights, 3 men, a work light, and every document that company generated in a quarter sorted by hand. The packets are still banded. 7 in the morning, you walk into Alma Guerrero's office in a borrowed suit that fits at the shoulders and nowhere else, carrying a backpack you refuse to leave with her receptionist, and put 11 folders on her table. She asks how you got them, and you tell her. All of it, the bins and the clipboard and the badge with another man's name, because lying is the one thing you still have that you haven't sold. Then she tells you it's worthless in a courtroom and fatal in a boardroom, because an audit committee that has been shown a thing is legally incapable of unseeing it, and every one of them has a house. She picks up the phone and asks who she's saying she got it from, and you tell her your name, out loud, on purpose, to a woman who used to work for you. Level 8. Company owner. You take a company apart in 45-minute increments on a public library terminal, because that's still the hard limit, and nobody's going to change it for you. You don't storm anything. There's nothing to storm. Alma hands the folders to outside counsel. Counsel is obligated to hand them to the audit committee. And the audit committee is now a room full of people with houses who have seen a thing. That's the entire attack. 91 days. It comes apart almost exactly in the order you drew on the laminated map. The auditor withdraws its opinion on 2 prior years. The filing goes late. The lender pulls the revolver inside a week. 2 logistics directors resign in 9 days, always the operators, always first, because operators can read a schedule. Ridgeline's registered agent flips in a single afternoon. He's a lawyer in a Schaumburg strip mall paid $400 a year to be a name on a form. And when 2 federal investigators sit down across from him, he becomes the most cooperative man in Illinois. Nobody fights for a man once the checks stop clearing. That's Marcus's own sentence. He said it about people like Rennie. It arrives at his address on schedule. It was always going to be true about him too, and he never once considered that. They put you in a conference room with 4 lawyers. Somebody pulls out a chair for you and it faces away from the door. You move it yourself, in front of all of them, and nobody asks why. And you sit through 2 hours of questions about vendor onboarding with your back to a wall like an animal. Marcus finds you in November, not in a boardroom, on the bench on Halsted because somebody told him that's where you'd be at lunch. Coat worth more than the bench. His car declines at the garage across the street and he has to walk 2 blocks in the rain, and you know because he tells you, furious, like it's your fault. It is your fault. He looks at you sitting there with a sandwich and wax paper and he laughs. He genuinely laughs. Look at you, you're still homeless. Only because I haven't moved back into my office yet. He stops laughing. You take a 20 out of your pocket, fold it the long way, and set it on the slat between you. He looks at it 4 seconds too long. You can watch it arrive. You can watch him decide not to have arrived at it. He takes it anyway. Then you put the watch on the bench next to where the 20 was. He glances at it and asks if it's supposed to mean something. It was on your wrist on the sidewalk the morning he tipped you. A man named Rennie bought it that night for half a burger and a coat, and wore it every day for 3 years, and was still wearing it when a front loader took his medication, and 11 days after that, he died at Strauger, and nobody claimed him, because he had nobody. Marcus never looked at it, not once, not on the sidewalk, not in 20 years of meetings. You said you wanted to see how long a genius survives without money. 411 people, Marcus. That's how long. Indictment in February. Accounts frozen, passport surrendered, an interim board seated in a week. Alma calls the vote and they hand it back to you. 11 minutes. Unanimous. You feel almost nothing at all, which is the only thing about that day that scares you. Then a communications consultant walks you through the messaging. She's very good at her job. The 3 years are a liability. Investors don't want a founder with a gap, they want a founder with a story. So going forward, the language is that you stepped back for personal reasons. You took a leave. Level 9. Billionaire CEO. First all hands, 1,100 people in a room and on a stream, and you say the 3 years out loud with the dates attached. Where you slept. What you did for money. The name people called you. The room does not know where to put its hands. Somebody in the back starts to clap and thinks better of it halfway. Understands something because the consultant never did. That isn't courage. 411 people are about to be on your payroll, direct, with badges and W-2s and their real names on them. And a man embarrassed by where they came from cannot hire them at scale without the whole thing collapsing inside a year. You are not being brave. You are protecting an asset. That's the sentence that gets you through the quarter. It's also true. 8 months into the house, you still can't sleep on the mattress. You wake at 3 on the floor beside it with your back against the wall and no memory of getting there. You eat standing up. You take sugar packets from the cafeteria in your own building, 14 of them, in a jacket pocket, and you find them at the dry cleaner and can't throw them away. You can't throw away a plastic bag. Any plastic bag. Your assistant thinks it's charming. It isn't charming. Your body was not told. The company staffs its own facilities now. Direct hire, no contractor, no third layer. And the first thing you did with the chair was cancel a vendor agreement that cost you a lawsuit you settled without reading. Kimball runs the overnight desk. He's 23. The jaw never sets straight, so his face rests wrong when he's tired, and he's tired most nights. He calls you Mr. Corbin. You've asked him 4 times. Twice as a joke, once seriously, once badly. He says okay, and then does it again, and he'll do it for the rest of his life. And there's no version of you standing in that lobby that gets it back. You bought back the building, the chair, the name on the granite. And the way that kid used to say ledger across a parking structure at 6 in the morning is gone permanently. The men you came up with won't come to the office. Not once. They meet you outside on the sidewalk standing up. Rennie's watch is in the top left drawer of your desk, unwound, still in the Cook County paper bag with the case number on the side. You've never worn it. You never will. You wear the $12 Casio you bought with your first Courier pay. It runs 4 minutes fast. You check it maybe 60 times a day. Every Friday, 12:15, you're on the bench on Halstead. The board calls it your eccentricity and you let them because they think it's a memorial and it isn't. It's reconnaissance. Who got housed? Who came back? What the sweep schedule is and whether the Thursday bag lunch is still running now that you own the building. The only economy that ever told you the truth about anything runs on that block. You're not going to stop reading it because you have a driver. First Friday in February, there's somebody already on the bench. Good coat. Dry cleaning tag still stapled to the cuff. Phone dead in his hand, held like it's going to change its mind, and he's doing arithmetic under his breath about hotels. You sit down and you offer him half a sandwich, and you look at his wrist, not his face. His wrist. The way Rennie looked at yours, because that was the kindest thing anybody has ever done for you, and it took you 3 years to understand why. A man who looks at your face is deciding what you've become. A man who looks at your wrist is telling you that you still have something to trade. Then you ask him his name, and he has to think about it. If you like this story, share and comment below where you're watching from.